Migration. It starts with an impulse that grows with an instinct that sends waterfowl soaring on the greatest journey of their lives, pumping their wings and stretching their necks to habitat thousands of miles away. The reason for the mass migration? To reach their breeding grounds in the Canadian and Alaskan tundra. The main goal of migration is survival, and habitat is essential to that goal. Birds on every flyway rely on a network of marshes, wetlands, and rivers to sustain them for the grueling journey. These wetlands act as rest stops and a place to refuel. They also provide the nutrients that the birds need to complete their journey. What will happen to the flyways that the waterfowl use to reach their breeding grounds? According to a 2010 NASA survey, 40% of the natural ecosystem on Earth will change to become something else. This means that half of the Earth's forest, grasslands, and tundra will change dramatically, and this can have a dramatic effect on the flyways that these birds follow. The expected warmer temperatures would cause more precipitation to fall as rain rather than snow during the winter, which would lead to more flooding in winter. This would alter the timing, quantity, and quality of water in the Pacific Flyway. The expected sea level rise would impact shallow tidal habitats that surround the coasts. Overall, the Pacific Flyway will see the permafrost thawing, the wetlands drying, and the plant species that waterfowl feed on shifting north. The North Central Flyway provides breeding habitat for nearly 60% of all ducks. Millions of acres have been converted to cropland, and the wetlands have begun to dry up and are expected to be wet for a shorter period. Those changes in habitat will make the area a less productive area for the breeding of ducks. With an increase in temperatures, the flyway has seen a loss of wetlands, a reduced water quality, an increase in invasive species, and has also been impacted by a growing human population. This flyway is expected to get warmer and drier, causing a decline in habitat, which will cause a decline in breeding numbers. In the Atlantic Flyway, the climate changes include warming temperatures in winter, and flooding is expected to become more common. The biggest change is going to come from sea level rise, which would impact the coastal habitat where waterfowl nest during the winter and on their trip north. One of the most famous and critical migration flyways in North America runs just south of the Platte River in central Nebraska. This region is known as a rainwater basin, and it draws millions of birds to a land of rich and shallow wetlands. Multiple migratory flyways intersect in central Nebraska, which funnels millions of birds into the rainwater basin. The rainwater basin wetlands are shallow wetlands that fill each spring with snowmelt, providing critical forage for millions of waterfowl each year. The current climate models for this area project an increase in temperature and winter precipitation and a decrease in summer precipitation. Both the maximum and minimum temperatures are also expected to rise, which could be catastrophic for the birds that use the rainwater basin wetlands. The higher winter temperatures would reduce snow storage, increase evaporation, and reduce runoff. Compounded by less rainfall in the spring and summer, the wetlands will start to dry up, resulting in less habitat for nesting areas and agricultural fields for feeding, causing waterfowl to alter their routes north. So why is this happening? Scientists are beginning to see evidence of drier and warmer weather patterns, an increase in the frequency and destruction of wildfires. Weather patterns, temperature averages, water levels, and wildlife movements are caused by a changing climate. It's late winter. The trees have awakened from their winter slumber. The winter dullness has been replaced by a palette of greens and yellows. All the signs of life seem to be returning, but nature has one last show. The arrival of the snow goose. They start in the Gulf of Mexico and follow a yearly cycle that takes them thousands of miles to the Alaskan tundra. This mass migration of snow geese is one of the greatest wildlife spectacles in the world. Snow geese will feed and fly in groups that number in the tens of thousands. Snow geese roost at night in lakes and wetlands and make daily trips to agricultural fields. Throughout the day, thousands of additional geese will arrive in noisy waves from their nighttime roosts. At times, the sky is filled with birds as they slowly sail down to join the others. One might assume that the large flocks are a sign of a stable population and a healthy environment, but looks can be deceiving. At the turn of the century, the population was close to extinction, but was brought out of the decline by government regulations. Another reason for the increase turns out to be human-caused. The growth of agriculture created a food source for areas that previously couldn't support high numbers of snow geese. The numbers have increased dramatically since then to an astonishing level. They are also so large that they are damaging breeding grounds and other birds are losing habitat. The changing climate has also had a major impact on the snow goose population. The greening tundra due to global warming supports more geese, causing populations to increase in the Alaskan tundra. This affects the geese and the tundra. The increase in snow geese populations causes more damage to the delicate tundra vegetation because of overgrazing. The loss of green vegetation on the tundra causes the darker undersurface to absorb more heat, which causes the impacts of climate change to continue to grow. As the temperatures increase, the amount of agricultural production will decrease, which means that there will be less area along the flyway that will support the growing number of snow geese. This example of how climate change and snow geese interact is a great example of how climate change is caused not just by one thing, but by a multitude of things that build off one another. The changing climate could have a major impact on the future of waterfowl migration. Waterfowl may not have to fly as far south because of the warmer temperatures, which may mean a loss in economic dollars for towns along the flyways. Places like Grand Island and Kearney, Nebraska, and Mound City, Missouri, are supported by the tourists that flock to the towns every spring when the migration pushes north. If the migration doesn't move as far north, these towns will lose thousands of dollars. Also, the warmer temperatures will cause a decrease in agricultural production, which means that states along the flyway won't be able to support as many birds as they fly north, causing a disruption in the population's carrying capacity. This disruption could cause the populations of waterfowl to decline. We may also start to see wetlands being destroyed and degraded. So what can we do? First, we need to reduce our CO2 and nitrogen emissions, and we need to manage for habitat that allows birds time to adapt. The way we are living now has begun to affect our climate. The changing climate has not only affected the way humans live, but also how animals live. The waterfowl migration is one of nature's greatest spectacles, and if we don't want to grow old on an earth without wild places, we must step up, speak up, and act to ensure the skies fill with birds for generations to come.